Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the podcast. I am joined by an amazing guest, Mr. Blair. Blair is a public speaking coach, English teacher, and professor with a bachelor's degree in English from UC Santa Barbara. Blair excels at improving students' communication skills and public speaking techniques. With years of experience, he helps individuals confidently express themselves in any setting and brings out their fullest potential. He is committed to making a difference and strives to ensure long-term success for his students. I am pleased to be joined by him on today's episode. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hi Blair, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for the wonderful introduction.
Absolutely. So without further ado, let's get straight into this episode. So my first question to you is, can you please introduce yourself to my audience?
Yeah, I think you've given me a fine introduction. Thank you for that. So I coach public speaking, and one thing that I would add to that, I also lead Empower Toastmasters Club here in Bangkok. I'm the vice president of membership. So one of my other pursuits, speaking, working on leadership and networking. I think it's a great space for it. People should check out.
Awesome. Yeah, for sure. I'll definitely put the link of it in the description below so my audience can check that out. And for my audience who would like a more detailed um, insight on you, you actually started off as a food tour guide before transitioning to an English teacher. So my first question to you is, what inspired your transition and how did that shift happen?
Great question. Thank you. So I've always been super into food, cooking and tasting. And I've also loved hosting people, whether it was at my house or working together with a friend to make some party or go somewhere and have an event. I've loved creating that experience for people. And especially in a tour setting, I learned that I love talking to people about the local stories, guiding them through different restaurants, different historical places. So that was the first job where I found my interest in public speaking. Eventually, because of my love for food and in particular Thai food, I wanted to move to Thailand and explore this scene. So I had previously planned a vacation in April of 2020. So I had a few years to think about it, and somehow the idea morphed from go for a couple of weeks of vacation to let's just move there and see what happens. And the best opportunity to do that was to teach English as a great starting point, a great jumping off point to get a foothold in the country. So I took my first job teaching English, found out that I really loved teaching. It wasn't that much of a surprise, but it was my first experience with that. And it confirmed some things that I already knew. I love the students. And eventually, that was in Hoi Hin. I just wanted to move to Bangkok. I'm a city guy. I wanted to be around all the action, the international people, and the opportunities. So I found a new job teaching English in Bangkok. And at the same time, I discovered this opening as a public speaking coach. And that was my first job, my first foray into that field, and became my strong career interest immediately after.
I think it's a great journey. Sounds like a really It sounds like a roller coaster experience because you moved from where you were, which was San Francisco, and you had this job, you love food, but you also love Thai food. Looking back at the whole experience and the whole journey, were you ever surprised by how well you managed to carry yourself when you left San Francisco for a new country and a new opportunity?
Another great question. Thank you. Was I surprised by how I carried myself? I would say, uh, no. I definitely embarrassed myself plenty of times and did silly things that weren't a surprise at all, trying to adapt to a new place and a new culture. And I think the pleasant and most positive surprise was just the constant stream of people that I've met who have brought great things and great connections into my life. And in that sense, meeting people, hitting it off, and going for opportunities like that, that wasn't much of a surprise, but it did pleasantly surprise me how quickly and automatically these things started falling into place once I put myself out there and started seeking new and better opportunities.
But if we look at public speaking as a skill, and you mentioned that you're an English teacher and you love teaching English, how do you approach helping people develop both their English skills and public speaking skills?
Hmm. It's almost two different things. So my English students and my public speaking students have no overlap. Public speaking is, at least at the level that I teach, is for students who are already fluent in English. And then there may be some subtleties of pronunciation for certain difficult words or clarity of language, particularly for kids or for kids who for whom English is their second language, even if they're already fluent. There may be a little bit of overlap there, but to me, they're separate. So when I teach English, it's mostly to help students feel confident about speaking and not afraid to make mistakes with the grammar, mispronouncing a word. It's easy when you're speaking a second language to feel embarrassed or to feel afraid of saying something wrong. But most of what I aim for is just to help my students feel okay with that and feel confident in that area. And then actually in public speaking, it's basically the same approach. When you speak in front of people, most of us are very nervous about saying the wrong thing or doing something that looks embarrassing, looks off. And so even though the subject matter is completely different, it's the same fundamental approach of be okay with making some mistakes, with potentially embarrassing yourself in a small way so that you can learn that it's not that scary. And once you get over that initial fear and anxiety, then you can really improve. And that's where I see my students on both sides just soar when they get that confidence to speak, whether it's a second language or speaking in front of people.
I totally agree. I think public speaking is a fear for some people. And, public speaking, I think as a public speaking teacher, public speaking coach, you probably have seen a big difference in how you confidently speak in public settings. And for you, as a public speaking coach, and you want to, like we mentioned, there's the fundamental approach is the same, but it's all about getting over that initial fear that we talked about. And I think the big part of getting that experience and possibly getting over that fear could be through practice and putting yourself in those settings where you're able to um, develop and grow in public speaking and also in the English speaking ability. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Practice, making progress, just moving from wherever you are, keeping at it.
So on that note, where are the best places or environments to develop English skills and public speaking skills?
So good question. I'll focus on public speaking skills because English is not really my main focus or English teaching. I'm really focused on public speaking coaching primarily. That's my passion and my specialty. So if you're looking to improve your public speaking skills, you could certainly go to Toastmasters, which is a whole organization dedicated to providing speaking opportunities for people. I would recommend that as a great starting point if you're looking for a more professional environment, friendly, relaxed, but still with an eye on business, professional public speaking. Great starting point to develop. Other opportunities, for example, I perform poetry in Bangkok. That is certainly public speaking. And if you're looking at it from a creative or artistic perspective, sharing something that you wrote out loud in front of 20 or 30 or 40 people, that will improve your public speaking skills very quickly if you commit to it and start doing it regularly. Other opportunities, maybe at work or even at school, you lead a regular meeting. That may not be a big group, and you may feel more comfortable because it's a familiar team. But when you stand up and direct traffic at the meeting, that's a form of public speaking. And that's a way to practice and develop there. Other things maybe at school. A lot of schools around here have students speak at assembly, which can be nerve wracking. But again, if you take it as a chance to practice public speaking, it absolutely counts. And that helps. Other quick examples, job interviews. That's a crucial point of public speaking. You might be an MC of a show, could be as casual as a birthday party with some entertainment, or it could be a more formal, say, company function. They need someone to stand up and look confident and host a show for the company party. These are opportunities to get in front of people and practice speaking. So if you're looking for them, they're out there pretty much every day. And if you want to shy away from them, a lot of people do that too, but I wouldn't recommend it.
No, absolutely. I totally agree. The opportunities are endless and there's so many chances to practice public speaking. And I think we can see how much practice it's kind of gone into because when we speak publicly when we speak publicly for the first time, it might be nerve-wracking, but as we put ourselves in those different situations, like you mentioned, in Toastmasters, poetry, company functions, assembly, we can kind of see that our public speaking skills and, our fear, that initial fear, we kind of can get over it. But if we're trying to assess how well we've improved in public speaking skills, what sort of things are we looking at?
Hmm. Another great question. How do we assess our progress in public speaking? First thing is inside, it's confidence. Students will often feel a big difference between the first class and the last class in terms of how comfortable they feel when they speak. So the more confident and comfortable you feel, the more progress you've made. That's a pretty strong internal measurement. We can also look at some very visible external elements, such as how is your eye contact? How is your body language, such as posture, gestures? How's your voice? Do you speak clearly and project it for everyone to hear? Do you have the right tone and emotion and variety to keep people interested as opposed to the boring monotone or stiff, tense voice that we've all heard at times? So internal confidence. And from there, you can look at body language, such as eye contact and voice.
If we are talking specifically about you, Blair, when do you feel most confident speaking in public settings, and what contributes to, as you mentioned, that internal confidence and for you being able to project yourself in a public setting?
Mm. When do I feel the most confident and why? When I'm familiar with the audience and I know what I'm talking about really well. And when I feel passionate about what I'm talking about or have some strong interest in it. So, for example, for example, this week at Empower Toastmasters, I gave a motivational speech called Sex, Drugs, and Kale Juice, which I think went over pretty well. And I knew the audience really well. It's my regular group at Empower. I speak in front of them pretty much every week. So I know them, they know me. I know that they're going to laugh at most of my jokes. I also felt very strongly about the subject matter. It's near and dear to my heart. I was talking about my favorite guitarist, Marty Friedman, and his life and how it's inspired me and what my audience can do. So that didn't require a lot of memorization or rote practice because I know the subject matter is close to my heart. And number three, even though I didn't need to practice a ton, I practiced enough. And I had enough rehearsals under my belt to feel totally confident and sure that I was going to rock that speech as best that I could. So with those three factors, I felt extremely confident and I had a great speech.
Awesome, that's great to hear. If you speak about something you're passionate about, I feel like you can deliver it and you'll also enjoy it as well. It's something that, makes you feel satisfied and happy because, like you mentioned, you were talking about a topic that you like, and then Marty Freeman, who's also someone you like, and that was just great to hear. Now that we mentioned a lot about public speaking, in your opinion, why is public speaking such an important skill, and how can someone overcome that initial fear of trying to put themselves out there? Like you mentioned, there's all these different places like, Toastmasters, poetry, or being an MC at a birthday party, for example. How does someone get through that initial barrier of the fact that they know they can do it, but they just don't want to put themselves in that position?
Very interesting. So you asked two questions and they're actually closely related. So why is public speaking important and how can people get over the initial fear? First, public speaking is important because we use it everywhere, all the time, even if it's not strictly public, like I mentioned in a job interview, communicating, expressing yourself clearly, and getting to the point in a convincing, engaging way. These are skills that are required for everyone to succeed. So it's not limited to being on stage, which is easy to avoid if you're not into it. It's a skill set that translates to all forms of self-expression. So if you're thinking about taking that first leap into public speaking, you don't have to think about it as standing up on stage and risking embarrassment and you have to face some colossal fear that you just have to get over. I would recommend looking at the importance and the benefits of what you're doing, first of all. So motivate yourself to do a difficult thing. This will pay off in X, Y, Z ways. Maybe you'll feel more confident raising your hand and contributing your thoughts in a meeting, or giving your supervisor some delicate feedback that you really need to express, but you have to be careful before you criticize your boss or say something that might rock the boat. Think about some situations where you can use these tools of communication, self-expression, being convincing and engaging. And imagine yourself succeeding at this. What will the benefits be? Could be as simple as a raise, a promotion at work, even a better job. What about the internal confidence? Imagine saying something excellent and everyone saying, wow, that was such a sharp point. Hey, I want to shake your hand. Hey, I want to tell you what a great point that was. Oh, could you tell me more? Imagine getting a positive response from people, and then how good you're going to feel for the rest of the day or the rest of the week after doing something like that. So rather than focus on, oh my God, it's a huge fear and I have to overcome it, I grit my teeth, think of the positives and use that to motivate yourself. Then start small. There's no reason to try your first endeavor speaking in front of 30 people if that gives you total stage fright and anxiety. Hey, that's a normal thing. See if you can speak in front of 3 people, or just come up with a speech or a poem, as the case may be, and practice it for 1 person and then for 2 people. So self-awareness is also key. Know right where the challenge is without going overboard. And don't fall short of that either. It's a very case by case basis. Everyone's different, but we're all essentially going in the same direction with this. Yeah, great question.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you for your response. That was a great response. I think focusing on the positive, and even though acknowledging probably the fact that you might have stage fright, it's normal. I think you experience it, everyone experiences it. But if you put yourself out there and you think about what positive you can get from that experience, I think is a great way to kind of shift your thinking and also empowers you to want to deliver a great speech. And on a similar note, as a teacher and a public speaking coach, helping your students is something that probably gives you a positive response, a good feeling, like we mentioned with the public speaking. Is there anyone who motivates you to excel as a teacher? And what drives your passion to kind of help students?
The biggest motivation is the students. I get such a thrill and a lift seeing my students succeed. There's nothing better than helping someone overcome a challenge. Everyone starts from a different place. I've had students who were deathly afraid of speaking. They came in with a good attitude and they pushed themselves and made a lot of progress. I've had other students who were pretty confident already, but maybe a little too confident. And then they tried some things and it didn't work. It roughed up their ego a bit. But again, they had a good attitude. They were mature about it. And they came back and tried again. And seeing people take responsibility for their learning, their lives like that, with just some guidance and support from me, that's what makes it exciting. That's what motivates me. When I see a student give a great speech in their final presentation, and then the parents are ecstatic and the students are excited. I walk out of there for the rest of the day like, oh, Studley Coach Blair, here I go. And really, it was the students who shined. But I feel that in that moment, I did a great job. And that's what pushes me to keep going.
Absolutely. I think every student is different. Everyone's um, challenges are different. Everyone's confidence level is different. And the fact that, like you mentioned, the students, that's a really key point because as a coach, as a teacher, your students are your number one. And if you're able to impact and get a positive response, like you said, from their parents, you kind of feel like, as Coach Blair, you did a great job, and that's a great feeling. And I inspire you and anyone who's watching this, who's in a similar position as Blair, being a public speaking coach and English teacher, to want to put in the effort to bring out the best in your students. I think it's not only beneficial to them, but also it creates a positive response for the whole class in terms of motivating them to also want to reach that high level. Speaking of, you mentioned that there's some students who come back and try again and they take responsibility. I think that's a key trait that students have is that taking responsibility. Maybe if the presentation or the public speaking experience didn't go that great. But speaking of you, Blair, I wanted to know, has there been any experience that you can share where you gave a public speaking speech that didn't go the way that you wanted it to go, and how did you learn from that and come back stronger?
Mm. Burned into my memory a speech I gave in seventh grade, age 11. It was a story about what I had done over Christmas break. And I thought I had the funniest jokes, the most interesting story, and I was going to be the most popular kid in class after this speech. Now, it was not my first public speaking experience. We had done a few in seventh grade and sixth grade. So I already knew that this was my thing, and the rest of the class was expecting something pretty decent as well. So I wrote this speech about trying asparagus for the first time at Christmas dinner and practiced it quite a lot and was excited, raring to go. Went up in front of the class. From the first word of the speech, I was shaking. I don't know what made me so nervous, but suddenly my confident, relaxed delivery vanished. And on top of that, the jokes were not funny. Story was not that interesting. I maybe got one or two mercy laughs, like, oh my God, he looks terrified. And by the end of the speech, I sat down thinking, wow, that could not have been more opposite of what I expected going into that speech. Nothing landed. I hope everyone forgot it as soon as I finished speaking. I was totally disappointed. And yes, it is deeply ingrained in my memory, that experience, probably the worst speech I've ever given. But I think it was a positive experience because I left that speech with a crystal clear list of things I was not going to do again. So, not the most fun in the moment, but overall helpful and a funny memory to look back on.
Absolutely, I totally agree. It sounds like a funny memory speaking of it to the whole class, but I think that's one of the key takeaways from your experience is something that my audience can learn from, which is the fact that, you acknowledge that the speech didn't go so well. You knew deep down that you could do better and you worked on that sort of things, and that's how you come back stronger. And as we are approaching the end of this interview section of the podcast, I would like to ask you one question, which is, If you could voice one unique message to the world, what would it be?
A message that I think the world should hear, and for myself as much as anyone else, stop comparing yourself to others. There's all kinds of media and pressure in society, anywhere you go in the world, to measure up to someone else. There is how you talk, how much money you make, what you do at work or school or with your family and friends. When you let go of that desire, be like someone else or to be the way that someone else says you should be, then you can appreciate what you have and be happy with yourself. Much easier than if I had to put in one sentence, stop myself to others.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Blair, for your time and sharing your experience, your journey, and everything that you do. I'm pretty sure my audience will take a lot of information and insight from our discussion for this interview. I hope you enjoyed. And to my audience who's new to the channel, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share this video if you did enjoy. Stay tuned for more videos coming soon, and I'll see you all in the next episode. Goodbye.